Well, hello there, it's June 1st, 2025, and guess what? We're still talking about Gaza, specifically a ceasefire proposal. One that was supposed to bring some quiet, less bombing, more breathing. But like my attempts to understand cricket, it's proving more complicated than it looks. Tensions? Oh, they're not just rising. They're practically doing parkour over the rubble. Hopes were high for this latest US-backed plan, but then Hamas came back with some notes. Think of it as group project feedback. Except the project is, life and death. And the feedback could restart the whole bloody thing. So here we are again, stuck in a geopolitical waiting room. Will they make a deal? Won't they? It's the ultimate cliffhanger. Let's dive into what this latest mess is all about. So, this US-backed ceasefire proposal. It wasn't just scribbled on a napkin, though, given the history, who knows? It was laid out in 3 exciting phases. Phase 1 was meant to be the quick win. The let's just stop shooting for a bit part. A 6-week pause in the fighting, imagine that. During this magical 6-week period, Israeli forces were meant to pull back, specifically from populated areas in Gaza. Think of it as a strategic scoot over, allowing some space for, civilians, also a release of some hostages held by Hamas. Women, the elderly, the wounded, that category, in exchange for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. Humanitarian aid was also a biggie for Phase 1, a massive surge of it supposedly. Food, medicine, fuel, the basics for survival. Hundreds of trucks daily, that was the promise. This phase was the crucial first step. The idea was to build some trust. If Phase 1 worked, maybe, just maybe. Alright, so if everyone played nice in Phase 1, and that's a big Texas-sized if, we'd then tiptoe into Phase 2, this is where things get even more ambitious, and predictably even more contentious. Phase 2 talked about a permanent end to hostilities. Yes, you heard that right, permanent. Like a tattoo you might later regret, but still, permanent. This phase included the release of all remaining living hostages, including male soldiers, which is a key point. In return, more Palestinian prisoners would be freed. And crucially, Israeli forces would fully withdraw from Gaza. A complete, total, don't let the door hit you on the way out withdrawal. That's a massive ask for Israel, let's be clear. And a massive demand from Hamas. Then comes Phase 3, the grand finale, if they ever got there, which, spoiler, is looking shaky. This phase was all about the long game, the what happens after the dust settles, if it ever settles part. It focused on a major reconstruction plan for Gaza. So this grand 3-phase plan lands on Hamas's desk. And what do? They get out the red pen. It wasn't a simple looks good sign here. Oh no, that would be far too easy. They came back with amendments, changes, what some might call deal breakers. Or, if you're feeling diplomatic, points for further discussion, which often means let's argue some more. Their biggest demand? A permanent ceasefire. Not just a temporary pause, then maybe permanent later. They want it locked in, upfront, ironclad, guarantees, timelines, the whole shebang. They're saying, we're not playing this maybe game, which from their perspective is understandable. They've seen temporary truces crumble before, like a poorly made cookie. Hamas also wants clearer guarantees on troop withdrawal, not just pull back from populated areas, but a full, complete withdrawal of all Israeli forces from Gaza, and they want this specified from the get-go. Section 5, Uncle Sam's scowl. Blinken says absolutely not, try again. So, Hamas sends back its homework complete with all those red ink revisions, and how does the US react? Specifically, Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Well, he wasn't exactly thrilled. He basically looked at Hamas's changes and said, nope, or, in more diplomatic terms, some of them were not workable. Which is Washington speak for are you kidding me? Blinken stated that some of Hamas's proposed amendments were, and I quote, unacceptable. That's a strong word in diplomacy. It's like your mom using your full name. You know you're in trouble then. The US position is that the original deal on the table, the one President Biden laid out, was already a good deal, a fair deal. The US argues that some Hamas demands go beyond what was previously agreed or discussed. They feel Hamas is trying to move the goalposts after the ball is already in the air. One key sticking point seems to be the timeline for a permanent ceasefire and troop withdrawal. The US plan had these in later phases, contingent on earlier steps being met. Section 6. The world watches, international reactions, and some tweet nervously. It's not just Hamas and Israel and the US in this drama. Oh no. The whole world is watching, like it's the season finale of a very bleak reality show. The United Nations, for instance, they're practically begging for a ceasefire. Any ceasefire at this point. They keep highlighting the humanitarian catastrophe, the starving children, the collapsed hospitals, minor details. Qatar and Egypt are key players here. They're the mediators, the go-betweens. Imagine being the relationship counselor for this couple. You'd need therapy yourself. They've been working tirelessly, shuttling messages, trying to find some common ground, which in Gaza is increasingly hard to find, literally and figuratively. Other nations are chiming in too, of course. European countries are largely backing the US proposal, urging Hamas to accept it. Though some are also increasing pressure on Israel regarding civilian casualties and aid access. It's a delicate balancing act. Section 7. Beyond the headlines, the grim reality on the ground. While diplomats argue over commas and clauses, let's not forget what's actually happening in Gaza. It's, to put it mildly, a complete horror show. The casualty figures are staggering. As of today, June 1, 2025, over 54,418 Palestinians have been killed since October 7, 2023. Think about that number. It's not just a statistic, and over 124,190 injured, many critically. In just the last 24 hours alone, at least 32 more Palestinians were killed and 136 injured. This is ongoing. It's a daily, relentless grind of death and suffering. And remember those US-backed aid distribution sites, places where desperate people go for food? Well, Israeli forces have reportedly killed at least 31 people there. Yes, at the places meant to provide life-saving aid. The humanitarian situation is beyond dire. Witnesses describe chaotic and deadly scenes at aid points. People are starving, hospitals are barely functioning. The UN reports over 632,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been displaced just since March 18th this year. That's over 500,000 people uprooted in a little over 2 months. Section 8. Gaza's future peace deal or just more pieces? So, what happens next? That's the million-dollar question, or more accurately, the multi-billion-dollar reconstruction question. Will international pressure finally force a deal? Will Hamas concede on its unacceptable demands? Will Israel agree to clearer terms for a permanent end? Honestly, your guess is as good as mine, and my crystal ball is currently in the shop, probably shattered from predicting this mess. The US says it's still pushing. Blinken is adamant that the gaps can be closed. He believes a deal is still possible, which is optimistic, to say the least. It's like believing your cat will one day pay rent. Hopeful, but perhaps not entirely based in reality. The mediators, Qatar and Egypt, will keep trying because the alternative is too grim to contemplate. If the talks collapse completely, well, that means more fighting, more death, more destruction. The humanitarian crisis will deepen further. Gaza will become even more uninhabitable, if that's even possible at this point. The cycle of violence will continue to spin, dragging everyone down with it. It's a prospect no sane person wants. Ultimately, any lasting peace requires more than just a temporary halt in hostilities.